For over 80 years, The Wizard of Oz has been our cherished escape, a Technicolor dream of ruby slippers and yellow brick roads. But behind the curtain, a story of real-life horror was unfolding, one the studio fought for decades to conceal. We're not just talking about a few on-set mishaps. We're talking about a beloved actor being poisoned by his makeup and left fighting for his life, and a star being set on fire due to a failed stunt. And believe it or not, that's just the beginning of the darkness hiding behind the rainbow. When it premiered in 1939, nothing looked like The Wizard of Oz, and its groundbreaking use of Technicolor was a true cinematic revolution. The sudden switch from sepia-toned Kansas to the vibrant, jewel-toned land of Oz was a visual spectacle that left audiences breathless. It represented the pinnacle of Hollywood's golden age, a dazzling fantasy crafted to lift the spirits of a nation weary from the Great Depression. This film wasn't just entertainment. It was a promise of a brighter, more colorful world. The movie was meticulously designed to capture the essence of childlike wonder and the triumph of good over evil. It told us there's no place like home and that we all have the courage, heart, and brains we need right inside us. This wholesome, innocent message is precisely what makes the grim reality of its creation so profoundly shocking. The fairy tale you grew up with was born from a production that was, for many involved, a living nightmare. Before Jack Haley ever donned the silver paint, a popular song and dance man named Buddy Ebsen was cast as the original Tin Man. For Ebsen, this was a golden ticket, a major role in what was clearly MGM's most ambitious project to date. He eagerly threw himself into the part, rehearsing the songs and dances, completely unaware that his dream role would almost cost him his life. This was the first major secret the studio would desperately try to bury. To achieve the Tin Man's metallic sheen, the makeup department applied a layer of clown white grease paint followed by a dusting of pure, industrial-grade aluminum powder. Every day, Ebsen was essentially coated from head to toe in this fine, shimmering metal dust. There were no safety tests or precautions. He was breathing in a cloud of poison with every take. This crude, dangerous method was the accepted practice, and no one questioned its potential consequences. Just 9 days into filming, Ebsen began to experience terrifying symptoms, waking up one night with severe cramping and shortness of breath. His fingers and toes began to cramp uncontrollably, and he struggled to take a single breath, later describing it as his lungs being coated with aluminum. His body was shutting down from what doctors diagnosed as a severe reaction to the aluminum dust, which was suffocating him from the inside out. It was a medical emergency born from pure negligence. Ebsen was rushed to the hospital and spent 2 weeks in an oxygen tent, fighting for his life. While their star actor was clinging to life, the studio's reaction was chillingly callous. Instead of expressing concern for his well-being, MGM executives were furious about the production delays and the cost of recasting the role. To them, Buddy Ebsen wasn't a person. He was a broken piece of equipment that needed to be replaced. In the face of this disaster, MGM immediately went into damage control, telling the public that Ebsen had simply suffered an allergic reaction. They downplayed the severity of his condition and completely concealed the fact that their own makeup process had poisoned him. This act of burying the truth set a dark precedent for the rest of the production. The studio's image was paramount, even if it meant silencing the suffering of its stars. When Jack Haley took over the role of the Tin Man, the studio had to make a change, reformulating the makeup into a paste to avoid the airborne dust. But the danger wasn't gone. The aluminum paste was still toxic and caused Haley to develop a severe infection in both of his eyes. The infection was so bad it could have resulted in permanent blindness, proving that even the safer alternative was a painful, hazardous ordeal. Margaret Hamilton's portrayal of the Wicked Witch of the West is one of cinema's most iconic villains, terrifying generations of children. But the woman behind the green paint was anything but a monster. She was a former kindergarten teacher and a dedicated character actress who adored children. Hamilton only took the role to support herself and her son, approaching the villainous part with professional glee. She had no idea her commitment would lead to unimaginable pain. The script called for the witch to make a dramatic, fiery exit from Munchkinland, vanishing in a puff of smoke and flame. The effect was planned using a hidden elevator below the stage, which would drop Hamilton out of sight just as a burst of real fire and smoke erupted. She expressed concern about the stunt's timing, but was told to trust the crew and focus on her performance. This moment of hesitation would prove to be a chilling premonition. On the second take, the trap door failed to open on cue, but the pyrotechnics went off exactly as planned. Hamilton was instantly engulfed in a real ball of fire, with the flames searing the skin on her face and hands. The copper in her green makeup was highly toxic and acted as a heat conductor, intensifying the burns. Her terrifying on-screen scream was one of genuine, excruciating agony. Hamilton suffered severe second-degree burns to her face and third-degree burns on her hand, which left the nerves exposed and caused her unimaginable pain. She spent 6 long and agonizing weeks recovering, forever grateful that her son wasn't on set to witness the horror. Even after returning to the film, she had to wear green gloves to hide her still unhealed hand. The physical and emotional scars of that day would stay with her for life. In a stunning display of heartlessness, the studio didn't even wait for her to heal before hounding her to get back to work. While she was still at home, wrapped in bandages, MGM called her, pressuring her to return to set for more scenes. Hamilton rightfully refused to handle fire again, a decision that would inadvertently pass the danger onto someone else. The studio's only concern was their shooting schedule, not their star's traumatic injury. Since Hamilton refused to do any more firework, her longtime stunt double, Betty Danko, stepped in for the Surrender Dorothy skywriting scene. The sequence required Danko to sit on a prop broomstick rigged to smoke, which was essentially a pipe disguised as a broom. During a take, the pipe exploded like a bomb, blowing Danko off the broom and inflicting deep wounds on her legs that required extensive surgery. One of the film's most beautiful and tranquil moments is when Dorothy and her friends fall asleep in a field of poppies while snow gently falls around them. Glinda the Good Witch uses the snow to break the Wicked Witch's spell, creating a serene, magical winter wonderland. The scene is visually enchanting, a perfect fairy tale moment meant to soothe the audience. But the reality of that snow is one of the film's most disturbing secrets. That beautiful, glistening snow was actually 100% chrysotyl asbestos, one of the most potent and dangerous forms of the carcinogen. In the 1930s, its lethal properties weren't widely understood, and it was commonly used as fake snow in Hollywood productions. The cast, including a teenage Judy Garland and the actor playing Toto the dog, were blanketed in pure, cancer-causing fibers without a second thought. Ray Bolger, who played the Scarecrow, endured his own private form of torture every day on set. His costume included a tightly fitted rubber mask that was glued to his face, making it nearly impossible to breathe or express himself. The intense heat from the studio lights essentially vulcanized the masks to his skin, leaving deep, permanent lines etched on his face for over a year after filming wrapped. He was a man trapped inside a suffocating costume. Burt Lahr's iconic Cowardly Lion costume was a feat of taxidermy, but it was a nightmare to wear. It was crafted from real lion pelts and weighed nearly 100 pounds, which was an immense burden for the actor. Under the scorching Technicolor lights, which could raise the on-set temperature to over 100 degrees Fahrenheit, the costume was an unbearable sweat box. Lahr was drenched in sweat after every take, and the suit had to be dried out every single night. Even the film's animal star wasn't immune to the production's hazardous conditions. During the scene at the Wicked Witch's castle, one of the Winky guards accidentally stepped on Terry, the Cairn Terrier playing Toto, and broke her foot. The dog's trainer had to find a canine stand-in for several days while Terry recovered from her onset injury. It seemed that no living creature, big or small, was safe on the set of Oz. At the heart of the cinematic storm was 16-year-old Frances Gumm, who the world would soon know as Judy Garland. MGM saw her as their next big star, and The Wizard of Oz was her make-or-break moment. The pressure on this young girl was immense, as the entire weight of this massive multi-million-dollar production rested squarely on her teenage shoulders. She was the anchor of the film, and the studio would go to extreme lengths to control her. Studio head Louis B. Mayer had a particularly cruel obsession with Garland's weight, reportedly calling her his fat little pig with pigtails. To ensure she maintained a youthful figure, the studio put her on a horrifyingly restrictive diet. This diet consisted of little more than chicken soup, black coffee, and a staggering 80 cigarettes a day to suppress her appetite. This institutionalized body shaming would contribute to a lifetime of insecurity and eating disorders. The workdays were a grueling 16 hours long, which was an impossible schedule for any performer, let alone a teenager. To keep Garland energized and working, the studio doctors prescribed her amphetamines, or pep pills, during the day. Then, to counteract the effects of the speed and force her to sleep at night, they gave her powerful barbiturates. This state-sanctioned drug regimen was presented to her as a normal part of being a movie star. This prescribed cycle of uppers and downers forced upon her as a minor marked the beginning of Judy Garland's lifelong battle with addiction. The studio created the very monster that would eventually lead to her tragic and premature death at the age of 47. The foundation for her future struggles wasn't just laid during The Wizard of Oz. It was actively engineered by the studio system. Her addiction wasn't a personal failing. It was an occupational hazard. The abuse wasn't just psychological and chemical, it was also physical. During the scene where Dorothy slaps the cowardly lion, a teenage Garland couldn't stop giggling at Bert Lahr's costume. After several ruined takes, an enraged director, Victor Fleming, took her aside, slapped her hard across the face, and told her to get back to work. This shocking act of violence against a child star was simply considered discipline in the brutal hierarchy of old Hollywood. It's crucial to understand that stars like Garland were essentially property of the studio under the contract system of the era. MGM dictated what she ate, what she wore, who she could date, and what medications she took. They had total, tyrannical control over every aspect of her life, both on and off the screen. This absolute power created an environment where abuse and exploitation were not just possible, but inevitable. The chaos behind the scenes was reflected in the constant change in leadership. The film famously burned through 4 different directors: Richard Thorpe, George Cukor, Victor Fleming, and finally, King Vidor, each with a different version for the film. This revolving door of directors created a disjointed and often tense atmosphere on set. The stability and magic you see on screen is a testament to the cast's talent, not the production's management. Filming in 3-strip Technicolor required an immense amount of light, which baked the set and raised the temperature to over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. The cast, already burdened by their heavy, unventilated costumes, frequently suffered from heat exhaustion and dehydration. It was a common sight to see actors and crew members fainting under the relentless glare of the lights. The magical world of Oz was in reality a sweltering and oppressive workplace. The actors playing the terrifying winged monkeys also faced serious danger during the haunted forest scenes. To simulate flight, several of the actors were suspended high above the stage by piano wires. During one take, the wire snapped, sending the actors plummeting several feet to the ground below. This incident resulted in several injuries that were once again kept quiet by the studio. Perhaps the most infamous rumor to emerge from the film is the ghoulish urban legend of a despondent Munchkin actor hanging himself on set. For decades, viewers have claimed to see a dark, swinging figure in the background as Dorothy, the Scarecrow, and the Tin Man skip down the yellow brick road. This persistent myth has become one of the most talked about and macabre pieces of Oz folklore. It's a shocking story, but it's one part of the dark legend that simply isn't true. While the production was undeniably plagued by real horrors, the hanging Munchkin is not one of them. The scene in question was filmed before the actors playing the Munchkins were even on set, making it impossible for one of them to be in the shot. Furthermore, home video technology in the 80s made the image easier to spot, but it also distorted it. This is a classic case of a dark rumor overshadowing the verifiable and frankly more shocking truths. So what was that mysterious figure in the forest? The truth is far more mundane, yet it reveals the studio's own peculiar choices. MGM had brought several large, exotic birds, including cranes and emus, onto the set to create a more exotic and fantastical forest atmosphere. The dark, swaying figure seen in the background is simply one of these large birds spreading its wings, a fact confirmed by filmmakers who have restored the original prints. The horrors of the Oz set were not an isolated incident. They were a symptom of a broader culture at Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer and other major studios. The golden age of Hollywood was a high-stakes, high-pressure environment where studios functioned like factories. Their product was movies. Their machinery was human beings, and the bottom line often trumped basic human safety and dignity. To protect their valuable assets and pristine public image, studios employed men known as fixers. These shadowy figures operated outside the law to clean up any and all scandals involving their stars. From arranging secret abortions to covering up drunk driving accidents and manufacturing alibis, the fixers ensured the studio's dark secrets stayed buried. The suffering on the set of Oz was just one of the many secrets they were paid to keep. Child actors of the era, like Judy Garland and her contemporary Shirley Temple, had virtually no legal protections. There were no meaningful laws regulating their work hours, their education, or their on-set safety. This lack of oversight made them incredibly vulnerable to the financial exploitation, overwork, and abuse. They were the cash cows of the studio system, and their childhoods were often sacrificed for box office receipts. You might wonder why more people didn't speak out against these dangerous and abusive conditions at the time. The answer is simple: fear. The studios held absolute power, and any actor, director, or crew member who complained risked being blacklisted from the industry forever. In a world without unions powerful enough to protect them, silence was a necessary tool for survival. Despite being forged in a crucible of pain, poison, and abuse, The Wizard of Oz remains an undisputed masterpiece. Its enduring magic is a powerful testament to the incredible talent and resilience of the people who made it. They poured their heart, courage, and brains into creating a timeless classic, even as the production itself showed them little of the same. The film's beauty is undeniable, but it is forever intertwined with the hidden pain of its creation. Let's take a moment to honor the sheer grit of these performers. Think of Margaret Hamilton, returning to set after being burned alive, or Jack Haley, performing through a painful eye infection. Consider Ray Bolger and Burt Lahr enduring physical misery inside their costumes day after day. And most of all, Judy Garland, who gave the world one of cinema's most heartfelt performances while being systematically broken down behind the scenes. It's easy to dismiss these events as products of a different time, but that phrase can often be an excuse for past atrocities. While workplace safety standards and protections for child actors have improved dramatically, the pressures of stardom and the potential for exploitation still exist. The stories from the set of Oz serve as a chilling reminder of what can happen when profit is prioritized over people. The fundamental power dynamics of Hollywood haven't entirely disappeared. Knowing the truth behind the Technicolor curtain forces us to ask a difficult question about the entertainment we consume. What is the true human cost of creating our most beloved cinematic fantasies? The story of Oz reveals that behind the magic, there can be a trail of broken bodies and broken spirits. It complicates our relationship with the film, adding a layer of tragedy to its triumphant story. The most important takeaway is that these incidents were not just a string of unlucky accidents. They were the result of a system of negligence, a culture of abuse, and a deliberate campaign to cover up the truth. The poisoning, the burns, the exploitation were all secrets MGM actively tried to bury to protect their brand. Bringing them to light isn't about tarnishing a classic. It's about exposing a history that deserves to be known. The next time you hear Over the Rainbow, you might think of the young girl forced to smoke 80 cigarettes a day and take pep pills to sing it. When you see The Tin Man, you might remember the actor who was nearly killed by his makeup. This new perspective doesn't ruin the magic of The Wizard of Oz. It deepens it, allowing us to appreciate the incredible strength of the artists who survived its creation. The reason we know these stories today is because decades later, people like Buddy Ebsen and Margaret Hamilton found the courage to speak their truth. Their willingness to share their traumatic experiences helped to slowly peel back the curtain on the dark side of the Golden Age. It is a powerful reminder that speaking out, even years after the fact, can change the narrative and lead to a safer future for others. As Dorothy clicks her heels together, wishing for a home that represents safety and comfort, consider the irony. For many of the actors, the set of The Wizard of Oz was the furthest thing from a safe haven. The final, haunting truth is that the magical land of Oz was in reality one of the most dangerous places in all of Hollywood. The escape they created for us was a reality from which they desperately needed to escape themselves. The Wizard of Oz holds a special place in so many of our hearts, and learning these truths can be shocking. So we want to hear from you. Does this change how you see the film? Share your memories of watching Oz for the first time and your reactions to these dark secrets in the comments below. If you found this look behind the curtain fascinating, make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell. We're always digging up the forgotten stories and dark secrets that Hollywood tried to bury. Stay tuned for our next deep dive into the hidden history of your favorite films. Thank you for watching.